Invictus Games is about to make a return for 2025, and it's something we always look forward to at the Royal Report. It's the regular reminder of the old Prince Harry we know and deep down we love. Remember this?
I can only begin to imagine how challenging the journey of recovery is.
Prince Harry has fallen from the person he used to be. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we bring you the royal stories that mainstream media won't tell you the complete truth about. Prince Harry's sense of privilege recently faced a serious rejection before the next Invictus Games. People with inside knowledge say Harry made a very clear request. He wanted a private airplane paid for not by his own money, but by the Invictus organization itself. He expected the Veterans Charity, which depends on donations and public support, to pay for his expensive travel. However, this time his request was refused. The answer wasn't given politely or with careful diplomatic language, but in clear, direct word from the organization CEO. Pay for your own private jet. Do not use money meant for veterans. The rejection shocked Harry and deeply embarrassed him. He had long operated under the assumption that his royal status and role with Invictus made him immune to such rules. To understand just how shocking this demand was, we need to think about what the Invictus Games really represents. This is an organization built on the sacrifices of wounded veterans, funded by donations from ordinary people who want to support those who serve their countries. Every dollar that comes into this charity is supposed to help injured service members recover, compete, and rebuild their lives. And Harry wanted to use this money donated specifically to help veterans, to pay for his own luxury travel. Think about that for a moment. While wounded soldiers travel on regular commercial flights, dealing with cramped seats and long delays, Harry expected the charity to pay tens of thousands of dollars so he could fly in comfort and privacy. The organization made it clear that its mission is focused on the veterans, not on his personal pride or luxury. They will not allow the veteran sacrifices to be disrespected by funding his desire for special treatment. Within Invictus, feelings of annoyance have been building for some time. This wasn't the first time Harry had made unreasonable demands. Sources inside the organization said there had been growing frustration with his attitude, his expectations of special treatment, and his disconnect from the real purpose of the games. Charity donations are dedicated to funding adaptive sports, rehabilitation, and aid for service members who have made immense sacrifices for their nations. Despite this, Harry, who has a personal fortune, proposed using these dedicated funds for his private flight. Let's break down what this money is actually supposed to do. When people donate to the Invictus Games, they are funding specialized sports equipment for disabled athletes, training facilities and coaching for wounded veterans, medical support and rehabilitation services, travel and accommodation for the actual competitors, venue costs and event organization, long-term support programs for veteran athletes. Every dollar matters when you're trying to provide these essential services. The cost of a single private jet flight could fund equipment for dozens of athletes, provide medical support for an entire team, or pay for training programs that help veterans rebuild their confidence and physical abilities. But Harry saw this pot of money and thought it should be used to make his travel more comfortable. A man with his own wealth, his own resources, his own ability to pay for luxury travel, wanted to take money away from wounded veterans to fund his personal comfort. The appeal was so unreasonable and disconnected from reality that the CEO was forced to deny it and did so in a public manner to ensure the point was unequivocally made. The fact that the CEO felt the need to make this rejection public tells us everything about how outrageous Harry's request was. Normally, these kinds of discussions would happen behind closed doors. The fact that it became public suggests the CEO wanted to send a clear message, not just to Harry, but to donors, veterans, and the public, that the organization would not tolerate this kind of misuse of funds. This incident is not an isolated case of Harry's preference for private jets contradicting his crafted public persona. He has repeatedly used international platforms to scold others about climate change and advise the public on cutting down their carbon emissions. However, he is consistently photographed disembarking from luxury private jets, often wearing sunglasses with his wife, Meghan. This has become a persistent symbol of his double standards, a fact his opponents are always quick to bring up whenever news of this nature emerges. Harry's environmental hypocrisy is particularly galling because of how often and how publicly he lectures others about their carbon footprints. He has given speeches at climate conferences telling ordinary people they need to fly less, drive less, consume less. He has partnered with environmental organizations and positioned himself as someone who cares deeply about the planet's future. But his actions tell a completely different story. Private jets produce significantly more carbon emissions per passenger than commercial flights. A single private jet trip can create as much pollution as an average person produces in an entire year. Yet Harry uses private jets regularly, treating them as his normal mode of transportation. This isn't just about being wealthy enough to afford luxury travel. It's about the fundamental dishonesty of telling other people to make sacrifices while refusing to make those same sacrifices yourself. It's about using your platform to promote values that you don't actually live by. Now, even the Invictus Games, the single organization that previously protected his reputation, has added its voice to those who will no longer accommodate his demands. Before we continue with the veteran community's reaction, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Harry's demand to use charity money for his private jet? Is this a final straw that shows his true character, or do you think there might be more to the story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're shocked by this level of entitlement from someone who claims to support veterans, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and shows me you want more honest analysis like this. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because royal drama never stops, and we're always here to break down what's really happening behind the palace walls. Now, let's look at how the veteran community is responding to the scandal, and their reaction is even more devastating than you might expect. The CEO's decision to deny funding for the private jet was far more significant than a simple refusal. The rejection was a firm and unambiguous statement, and the consequences have been devastating for Harry's public image, particularly with the veteran community, a group he desperately needs to keep as allies. Reportedly, many veterans are furious behind the scenes. They once viewed Harry as a peer, a fellow soldier who wore the uniform and could connect his royal background with military service. The Invictus Games was created to focus on their recovery, camaraderie, and strength. Now, however, numerous members feel deeply let down. The private conversations among military members are severe. Many are saying Harry is no longer behaving like a true brother-in-arms. To understand how damaging this is for Harry, we need to appreciate what the veteran community meant to his post-royal identity. When he left the royal family, when he lost his military titles and patronages, when he moved to America and struggled to find his place, the veteran community was his anchor. These were the people who still respected him, who still saw value in his contributions, who still believed in his commitment to service. The Invictus Games gave him credibility, purpose, and a platform that didn't depend on his royal status. But that support was based on the belief that Harry was different from other privileged elites, that he genuinely understood and cared about the struggles of wounded veterans, that he was using his platform to serve others rather than himself. The private jet demand shattered that illusion. It showed that Harry sees himself as fundamentally different from the veterans he claims to serve, that he believes he deserves special treatment that they don't get, that is willing to take resources away from them to fund his own comfort. He is behaving like a royal, demanding premium treatment while the veterans endure standard seating and exhausting itineraries. This has led to the emergence of mocking titles among some veterans, such as Jet Prince, Private Jet Harry, and the most critical one, Captain First Class. These nicknames might seem funny, but they represent something much more serious, the complete loss of respect from a community that once admired Harry. Military culture values authenticity, sacrifice, and putting the mission before personal comfort. Harry's behavior violates all of these values. The fact that veterans are creating mocking nicknames for Harry shows how thoroughly he has lost their support. In military culture, this kind of ridicule is reserved for officers who are seen as selfish, out of touch, or unworthy of respect. For injured service members who have sacrificed their physical and mental well-being, discovering that their figurehead intended to use their resources for his own comfort is a profound betrayal. Many of these veterans have given up limbs, endured years of rehabilitation, struggled with PTSD and other invisible wounds, all in service to their countries. They compete in the Invictus Games not for personal glory, but to show that they refuse to be defined by their injuries, that they can overcome any obstacle. To find out that Harry, who has never faced these challenges, who has never made these sacrifices, who has never had to rebuild his life from scratch, wanted to use their charity money for his personal luxury is a slap in the face to everything they represent. The frustration extends beyond the veterans. The donors, corporations, and benefactors who financially support the games are also deeply concerned behind the scenes. They contribute significant funds annually to provide competitors with the necessary gear, assistance, and facilities. The allegation that Harry attempted to divert these funds for his own benefit is a serious problem for them. A number of corporate sponsors are reportedly demanding guarantees that their contributions will be used exclusively for veterans programs, not for travel costs for the Sussexes. This represents a potential financial crisis for the Invictus Games. Corporate sponsors and individual donors give money because they believe in the mission, because they want to support wounded veterans, because they trust that their contributions will be used effectively and appropriately. When the founder of the organization tries to use charity money for his personal expenses, it raises serious questions about financial oversight, organizational priorities, and whether donations are being used as intended. The fact that sponsors are now demanding specific guarantees about how their money will be used shows how much trust has been lost. These are donors who previously gave without conditions, who trusted the organization to use their contributions appropriately. Now they feel they need legal protections to ensure their money goes to veterans rather than to Harry's travel expenses. This kind of mistrust can be devastating for a charity, making fundraising much more difficult and expensive. Although the CEO's firm rejection of the request has calmed some concerns, the fact that it was ever made has created lasting resentment. The Sussex name, previously considered a major benefit for Invictus, is now viewed as a potential risk that might discourage future sponsorship. This is perhaps the most damaging long-term consequence of Harry's request. For years, his involvement with the Invictus Games was seen as a major asset. His celebrity status brought attention to the organization, attracted sponsors, and helped raise awareness about the challenges facing wounded veterans. But celebrity endorsement is a double-edged sword. When a celebrity's reputation becomes controversial, their association can hurt rather than help an organization. Sponsors and donors don't want to be associated with scandal, controversy, or behavior that contradicts their values. Harry's private jet demand, combined with his other controversies, has transformed him from an asset to a liability for the Invictus Games. Organizations are now weighing whether his continued involvement helps or hurts their mission. Making the situation worse is Harry's recurring issue with hypocrisy regarding climate change. He has frequently given public speeches around the world, advising people to reduce their carbon emissions by flying and driving less. However, he was once again insisting on the use of a private jet. This represents the classic contradiction of expecting others to follow rules he himself ignores. Critics are enthusiastically highlighting this contradiction. UK media outlets are republishing old images of Harry and Meghan disembarking from high-end private aircraft, placing them next to quotes from his environmental addresses. The environmental angle adds another layer of hypocrisy to the scandal. Harry has positioned himself as a climate activist, partnering with environmental organizations, speaking at climate conferences, and regularly lecturing others about their carbon footprints. He has told ordinary people that they need to fly less, that they should consider the environmental impact of their travel choices, that everyone needs to make sacrifices to combat climate change. He has suggested that people should take fewer vacations, choose destinations closer to home, and use commercial airlines instead of more polluting forms of transportation. But when it comes to his own travel, Harry consistently chooses the most environmentally damaging option available. Private jets produce vastly more emissions per passenger than commercial flights. They are the most carbon-intensive form of travel available to civilians. The contrasting message is obvious and requires little explanation. Harry advocates for eco-friendly choices but uses carbon-intensive private air travel. This is a severe hit to the moral credibility he values. This hypocrisy is particularly damaging because climate change activism is supposed to be based on moral authority, on the idea that the activists genuinely care about the issue and are willing to make personal sacrifices for the greater good. When activists are revealed to be living lifestyles that directly contradict their public messages, they lose all credibility. They become symbols of elite hypocrisy rather than moral leaders. Furthermore, there is the element of Meghan's involvement. Sources indicate she might have been the primary advocate for the high-profile travel arrangements. This would be consistent with her previous behavior, which has included demands for premium security and reported disagreements over luxury lodging and transportation during early official visits. If she did play a role in this request, it aligns with an established pattern. This situation strongly supports the story critics have always told, that Meghan has changed Harry from a down-to-earth soldier into a privileged celebrity spouse who prioritizes his public persona over his duty to serve. The question of Meghan's involvement in this scandal adds another dimension to the story. Multiple sources suggest that she may have been the driving force behind Harry's increasingly unreasonable demands, including the private jet request. This fits with a pattern that observers have noticed since Harry's marriage. Before Meghan, Harry was known for being relatively down-to-earth, for his easy interactions with ordinary people, for his genuine connection with veterans and service members. But since marrying Meghan, his behavior has become increasingly entitled, his demands more unreasonable, his connection to his charitable causes more superficial. Critics argue that Meghan has encouraged Harry to see himself as a celebrity first and a public servant second. Whether or not this interpretation is fair, it's become a widely accepted narrative that explains Harry's transformation from a popular royal to a controversial figure. The private jet scandal reinforces this narrative by showing Harry making exactly the kind of entitled demand that fits with critics' portrayal of him as someone who's lost touch with his values. Regardless of whether this is accurate, that view is now firmly established, and it only makes the negative reaction stronger. On the internet, the controversy has become a popular subject for jokes. Social media platforms are filled with comedy videos making fun of Harry as a private jet prince, using tags such as Invictus is for veterans, not for holidays. Some edited videos mockingly compare soldiers traveling on low-cost flights with Harry enjoying luxury drinks on a private plane. This mockery is no longer limited to a small group. It has spread widely online, and it is extremely harsh. The power of social media to destroy reputations cannot be underestimated. In the past, public figures could recover from scandal because a news cycle moved on, because people forgot, because there were limited ways for ordinary citizens to create and share content. But social media has changed all of that. Now, embarrassing moments live forever online. They get turned into memes, shared millions of times, and become part of the permanent cultural record. Harry's private jet demands have become perfect material for social media mockery. The contrast between his environmental preaching and his luxury travel is so stark that it practically makes fun of itself. The image of wounded veterans struggling with basic accommodations while their patron demands private jet service is so obviously wrong that it doesn't need explanation. In today's world, scandals gain traction not only through news reports but also through widespread ridicule that can permanently damage someone's public image. Harry has now become the target of these jokes. The memes and jokes spread faster and reach more people than any official statement or apology could. They shape public opinion in ways that traditional media never could. They turn serious issues into sources of entertainment, making it even harder for the people involved to recover their reputations. Once you become a meme, once your mistakes become sources of widespread entertainment, it's almost impossible to be taken seriously again. You become a punchline rather than a public figure worthy of respect. For the Invictus Games, this situation could represent a major shift. The event, once considered Harry's greatest accomplishment, now faces a possibility of being remembered for his privileged behavior rather than its true purpose. According to sources, the organization's leadership is exploring strategies to separate the games from the couple's ongoing disputes. Their main focus is to safeguard the veterans, sponsors, and competitors. If this requires reducing Harry's involvement going forward, it would be the final embarrassment. The organization he created continuing to succeed without him. This potential separation would be devastating for Harry personally and professionally. The Invictus Games has been his most successful post-royal project, the thing that gave him credibility and purpose after leaving the royal family. If the organization decides it can be more successful without him, if his involvement becomes more of a hindrance than a help, it would represent the ultimate failure of his post-royal career. The irony would be profound. Harry created the Invictus Games to support wounded veterans, but his behavior has become such a distraction from that mission that the organization might need to distance itself from him to preserve its effectiveness. This would leave Harry without his main source of credibility, without the veteran community support, without the project that justified his post-royal existence. It would be a complete repudiation of everything he's tried to build since leaving the royal family. As he becomes remembered as a warning about letting self-importance override dedication, this is a deeply painful personal defeat for Harry. He previously built an image as a reserve royal who discovered meaning through helping others. Now, However, he resembles a type of privileged person he always said he disliked, someone expecting preferential treatment while others endure hardship. The most unfortunate part is that he seems completely unaware of this shift. This transformation is perhaps the most tragic aspect of Harry's story. There was a time when he was genuinely admired, when his commitment to veterans seemed authentic, when his rejection of royal privilege appeared sincere. But somewhere along the way, he lost sight of the values that made him popular. He began to see himself as entitled to special treatment, began to view charity resources as available for his personal use, began to expect others to fund his luxury lifestyle. The saddest part is that he doesn't seem to realize what has become. From his perspective, traveling by private plane is just normal. However, to everyone else and to the veterans he represents, it is an obvious sign of a man who is completely out of touch. Harry appears to genuinely believe that his requests are reasonable, that his status justifies special treatment, that the sacrifices others make for him are appropriate. This disconnect from reality is what makes his fall from grace so complete. This controversy represents more than a simple travel request. It involves a prince who vowed to break from tradition, but is now demonstrating that he is no different. The Invictus Games were intended to be a protective barrier, the single endeavor that will consistently defend him against detractors. However, now the organization itself is challenging him. This leads to a critical uncertainty about what follows. Could Harry be gradually phased out of the event he founded? Will financial supporters and participants call for him to step down? The implications of this scandal extend far beyond just the Invictus Games. It represents a fundamental credibility crisis for Harry that affects every aspect of his post-royal career. If he can't be trusted to respect the boundaries around charity funds, it is willing to take money meant for wounded veterans to fund his personal comfort, what does that say about his involvement with other charitable causes? If his own organization feels a need to publicly reject his demands, what does that say about his leadership abilities and his understanding of his role? If the veteran community, his most loyal supporters, are turning against him, what constituency does he have left? The private jet scandal has exposed the fundamental contradictions in Harry's post-royal identity. He wants to be seen as a man of the people while living like elite royalty. He wants to be respected as a veteran advocate while prioritizing his own comfort over veterans' needs. He wants to be taken seriously as a climate activist while contributing more to carbon emissions than most people produce in a lifetime. These contradictions can't be sustained indefinitely. Eventually, the gap between public persona and private behavior becomes so large that credibility collapses entirely. Alternatively, will he become more defiant, maintaining his position as a leader of a community that has lost faith in him? Regardless of the outcome, it is clear that while Harry might have believed he was successful, his public standing is declining rapidly because of this aircraft dispute. Harry now faces some difficult choices about his future. He can continue on his current path, making unreasonable demands and expecting others to fund his lifestyle, but this approach seems to be generating more problems than benefits. He could try to rebuild his credibility by genuinely embracing the values he claims to represent. Flying commercial, using his own money for travel, focusing on serving others rather than demanding special treatment for himself. Or he could double down on his celebrity lifestyle, abandon any pretense of public service, and simply embrace being a wealthy celebrity who profits from his royal connections. Each of these paths has significant costs. Continuing his current behavior will likely lead to further rejections, more embarrassing public disputes, and continued erosion of his credibility. Genuinely reforming his behavior would require admitting he was wrong, accepting criticism, and making real sacrifices, all things he seems reluctant to do. Abandoning public service entirely would mean giving up the source of whatever credibility he has left and accepting that his post-royal career has been a failure. None of these options seem appealing for someone who wants to maintain his status as a respected public figure. So what do you think happens next for Prince Harry? Can he recover from this scandal, or has he finally crossed a line that can't be uncrossed? Has this private jet demand exposed his true character once and for all? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Harry was wrong to ask for charity money to fund his private jet? Do you believe the veteran community is right to turn against him? And most importantly, do you think he can ever rebuild the trust he's lost? If this analysis opened your eyes to just how far Harry has fallen from his original mission, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and shows me you want more honest coverage of royal stories that mainstream media won't fully explore. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications because the royal drama never stops, and we're always here to break it down for you. Share this video with anyone who's been following Harry's post-royal career. They need to understand how this private jet scandal represents a turning point that could define his future. Thanks for watching, and remember, when public figures claim to serve others while serving themselves first, it's only a matter of time before the truth comes out. I'll see you in the next video with more royal analysis that cuts through the spin to show you what's really happening. The private jet scandal isn't just about travel arrangements. It's about character, priorities, and whether Harry can ever recover the credibility he's lost. Based on the evidence, that recovery looks increasingly unlikely.